Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Podcast, number 19. My name is Mark Devlin, and this is Scotland's number one anti-nationalist show. And it's going out live on Twitter, Facebook, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Niall Fraser and David Griffiths.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a great evening.
Hello, everyone.
And what are we going to be talking about today?
Tonight, I will be talking about Nicola Sturgeon's plan to dismantle Scotland's National Health Service.
And tonight I'll be asking if Scot Tories deserve your vote.
And I'll be asking, are disillusioned SNP going to come back to Labour?
Ooh, and of course, we have Zoomer of the Week.
All right, so we will be back in a second. Oh, well, hello again. And I don't know, it seems to be maybe I have some technical issues on my side. So apologies for that. If you're getting some can't hear or see properly, it will be fixed as the stream goes on. Okay, as usual, we start our podcast with a thanks, shout out to our donors. The podcast comes to you thanks to them. We did a crowdfund and people donate every week to the podcast. We also like to thank our friends at UK Union Voice and United Against Separation. They have supported us by letting us distribute the podcast on their Facebook pages. What else we got? Okay, so you can watch us on Twitter and YouTube as well.
Yes, please do leave a like, a share, a comment. At the very least, you can like it or comment. We're fast approaching the elections. They're going to be on us in a flash. And for the maximum impact, we need you to share, like, comment, maximum interaction, and then we might make a big difference. It truly might. Keep your comments short, no essays, and we'll try to get them on screen.
Okay, sorry, I might have disappeared there for a second. It's just one of those days. It seems that nothing can go quite right. Okay, what we want to talk about is that we are doing a new billboard campaign for this year. As many of you know, that we did a big billboard campaign last year, Resign Sturgeon, and that went very well. It's very popular, and lots of people saw that. Where is it here? Got a little picture of that. That's the plane flying, and we put these big posters out all across Glasgow, Edinburgh, and Aberdeen. So this year we're doing a new campaign, which is it's called here it comes. SNP councils are rubbish, and complete with its own little picture of our friend Ratty McRatface. And that's also with the hashtag bin the SNP.
Yeah.
So,
and we've already raised £1,800 of the £3,000 target. So well done, everyone, for contributing. Every little penny helps, and we can change as many minds as possible.
And of course, that's in a very short period of time that we've raised that. So many thanks to everyone. Terrific. And so just to say that if you want to see these billboards erected all around Scotland, then please go to the Majority site and click 2022 Billboard Campaign. And can I just ask that?
I've got that. I'm going to show how you do that. Here's the site up the top there. You might be able to see 2022 Billboard Campaign. Simple click there, and off you go.
Off you jolly well go.
So today we've been working on getting these placed in the around Scotland. So I'm going to bring in Mary, who's been doing that work, and to give us a little update.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Well, I've been talking to the billboard companies today, and if we can reach our £3,000 target, we can put up billboards in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, and Dundee. So
Fantastic.
please keep donating. Please share the link and so on, and get as many people as you can. The more money we get, the more billboards we can put up all over Scotland. Thank you.
And just to say that if these billboards, when they are put on display, when you happen to see one, make sure you take a selfie with a billboard in the background and post on social media. If you need any inspiration, just imagine you're Nicola Sturgeon on the site of a World War II concentration camp. Take a photo with a big smile on your face.
Oh, no.
Yeah, very good. Well, we'll be talking to Mary at the end of the programme because she deals with all the chats, and please keep those chats rolling in. Okay, thanks a lot. We'll see you later.
Cheers, Mary.
And where are we now? Okay, so coming up, now I was going to be talking about whether the Scots Tories deserve your vote this election. Okay, excuse me. And then David will be talking about the SNP government's plan to reduce the number of nurses. A little seen story, but is quite important. But first, I'm going to be talking about something else. Right. Okay. So every day we see posts on social media from people, our followers, who are saying the only way to beat the SNP is for the pro-UK parties to join together. And people are getting angry when they see Labour attacking the Tories, saying, why aren't you working together to beat them? After all, pro-UK voters are in the majority. And I think we have to say that perhaps that time has passed. And, David and Niall spent a lot of time last year trying to make that happen.
Yeah,
we did indeed. Yeah, we did. I think it's clear that there was really no appetite among the main parties to work together. We saw that the Conservatives paid lip service to the idea, but the Labour Party especially made it absolutely clear they weren't going to work alongside the Conservatives. So really the chances of that happening, certainly under the auspices of those two parties as they stand, are next to none. So it's really not going to happen.
Yeah. We did put all that effort in, David, as you recall, but nothing came of it. So we must find a new strategy.
Right. I mean, it brought a lot of focus to tactical voting on an individual level, and I think a lot of people did do tactical voting. And for example, Jackie Bailey's seat, which was one of the seats that ensured that the SNP didn't get a majority, was saved because of that. So absolutely. I mean, I think there was a good result there.
Yeah, in fairness, also the 4 Liberal Democrat constituency candidates who were returned, they received a share of the vote which was way above the regional list proportion of votes that they took. So it's clear that there was a substantial element of tactical voting there in electing those Liberal Democrat candidates also, which is something that's often forgotten. But that's true. So there was an element of tactical voting in the constituencies. The problem is in the list, the parties just decided it was every man for himself, and that's how the people voted. So it's very unfortunate, but such is life, unfortunately.
Yeah, at the time, I was like, okay, this is a reasonable strategy. There was a chance that it could happen. There was an opportunity, especially when Richard Leonard left. There was a chance that a Labour leader could come in and say, right, grasp the nettle, as it were, and say, look, we're just going to beat the SNP, and then the winner takes the spoils. What we're going to do is, if we win, then we can open the books. We can, make life really difficult for the SNP administration that was in before us, and really do a lot of damage to them that way. And I think that was what we were thinking. But I think the Labour really didn't want to be tied to the red Tory label, and this is a thing that's really hurt them, I think, over this period. And you still see it right now. Whenever a Labour person, a councillor, for example, puts up a post saying vote for us, underneath it you'll see loads of nationals coming in and say, you're just a red Tory, you're just a red Tory. And even though, of course, the parties have entirely different manifestos. What do you think of that?
I love that we've got different brands of Tory, red Tory, tartan Tory, just normal everyday Tory. I mean, everyone that's an enemy of the SNP is de facto Tory, it seems.
That's it. I mean, it is the case that in Scotland, all you have to do is label somebody a Tory or pretend they have any connection with the Tories, and that's enough to get people to stop voting for them and then to be considered pariahs, and it's quite bizarre, really. It's
Of course,
I mean, we know that what they're really talking about there is Tory not being a Conservative voter, but somebody who represents privilege and wealth. That's what they're really talking about.
You think so? No, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it just means someone who's not a national, a Scottish nationalist.
Could be, yeah.
Right?
But
I mean,
they don't. But what did they say to Liberal Democrats? They don't call them Tories. So I don't know.
Yeah, they call them
Yellow Tories.
Yeah, they
Yellow
call
Oh,
them
did they
yellow
really? Oh my
Tories.
god! Oh my god!
Yeah,
Well, or maybe they
yeah.
won't now that what's his name? Cole Hamilton has said that he'd consider a coalition with the SNP. Maybe the Lib Dems are in vogue all of a sudden now. I don't know. But no, I think there's an
Didn't
element.
he
of
say
that,
he would
I
also
have
have
to
a coalition with the Tories as well?
Oh, good. Did he? Well, shows they've learned nothing from the Condem alliance, doesn't it? My goodness.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think this time for coalitions is over. And I think one of the things we have to realise now is that actually there are good reasons for Labour not to make coalitions. Like, first of all, Labour has to stand on its own 2 feet. That's the first thing. And they have to be able to, like all parties, and the Tories have to stand on their own 2 feet. And that's why I was a bit disappointed to see Alex Cole-Hamilton say that he would indulge in coalitions, although I guess the Lib Dems are a party of coalition anyway. But still, the idea that he would countenance a coalition with the SNPs is a little bit disturbing. But let's go moving to Labour. So I think there was a chance when someone could have, a Labour leader could have grasped that nettle. But I think a lot of people are now still in this idea that we still want an alliance, and they get angry when there isn't an alliance happening. And instead of seeing what the actual Labour strategy is, and the Labour strategy is, to be honest, it's fairly simple. It's they have to appeal to ex-SNP or disillusioned SNP voters. And there's many of those coming down the pike. For example, just have a look here. Here is some poll results we had the other day here. Westminster voting intention, Scotland, SNP 42%, that's down 6, and Labour 26, up 6. That's quite a big jump from one to the other. And so we have to say, how is this actually going to work out? Because basically, look, Labour can't win these people back if they make an alliance with the Tories, because all the people will say is, you're just, I'm disillusioned with the SNP, but I'm not going to go back to you. I would rather go back to Alba or something like that, or go to the Greens or something instead. So they have to, in a way, what the Labour has to do is really, they have to be almost like do more attacks on the Tories now to show these ex-SNP people that they're the most effective choice against the Tories, because if the SNP are not going to get a referendum, and the SNP cannot form a government, national government, then what's the point in voting for SNP? So that's
absolutely right.
Yeah, so what we call that anyway, what I've been calling it, I'm writing an article on this. It should be out tomorrow, next day, which is called The Golden Bridge, which is based on Sun Tzu from The Art of War, which the idea is that build your opponent a golden bridge to retreat across. And the idea is that Labour has to be an effective anti-Tory voice and get to attract these disillusioned folk back.
So I mean, keep on the Sun Tzu Art of War. You're not supposed to give your enemy no line of escape. So this is the thing. We need to allow people to escape the SNP into other parties. I feel that most of them will go to Alba, but the rest will probably be vacuumed up by Labour, which that works out good for everyone, actually.
Yeah. I would go along with
returns
that.
Politics to the mortal enemies, Labours and Tories. That's what it sort of returns to the normal politics in Britain, which everyone's longing for a wee bit of normalcy. Everyone.
Absolutely right. I don't see many SNP voters going Green. I think they'll be voting Green already. I don't really see the attraction of the Greens for anybody other than the very young and the hopelessly idealistic. I think it's a given. Almost no SNP voters will go to the Conservative Party because that's just too much a jump. So I think it has to be for those who are maybe the frustrated nationalists who want independence tomorrow. They'll go Alba, but anybody who thinks about it rationally and logically will realise that really independence is not happening at all. Therefore, let's go back to Labour, because let's be honest, we know that the SNP vote is made up. in probably 80% of the SNP vote today is made up of ex-Labour voters who are just disillusioned by
of course.
various disasters that have befallen the party in the 21st century. So yeah, that's very much what we're hoping will happen. It seems the most logical step is for those people to go back to voting Labour, and it's up to Labour to make themselves credible and electable in order for that to happen. So
Yes.
to see how that
Yeah,
goes.
and I think so. The thing about that is that they have to attack the Tories. So,
Yeah.
you know, if
Yeah.
you're looking at that and seeing Angus are attacking the Tories, don't go, "Oh my God, you should have made an alliance," right? You're like, "Well, we had the chance to do that. It didn't work. You know, let's move on and let's actually understand what the real strategy is here." And we're beginning to see this in the polls. We see that people are, you know, coming back. That I showed you that poll a minute ago. Here's another one, which is, you know, again, regional list SNP -7, Labour +4.
Wow.
And I think it's quite important for on the constituency vote. It's there was no change in that one, the constituency vote. But, you know, so there is a potential for people to come back. And I think, you know, getting on at Labour for trying to get the people back, and it's mainly Tories
It's
doing that. I mean,
counterintuitive, is what it is.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think a lot of the Conservative commentators on social media really aren't grasping the reality of the situation. I think there are a lot of people in the Conservative Party and supporters thereof who genuinely think that they can beat the SNP next month, and I think they actually believe that. They've made themselves believe that they won't even come. They'll come a poor third next month, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's no way at all. So they're perpetuating this falsehood, really. They're either making it up and pretending, or else they genuinely are so lacking in self-awareness that they think it's going to happen. It is absolutely not going to happen. There's no way that an incumbent party, as in terms of the UK situation, Westminster, an unpopular incumbent party sitting in Westminster in mid-term council elections will get a good result. They won't, guys. It's never happened. It's not going to happen next month. I can absolutely assure you. So yeah, I think really the Conservative commentators have got to get a dose of reality, because they're really not showing any at all, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to watch the commentators. A big thing that we do at the majority is, push journalists, particular, and people online who say that they're socialists in their bios, or they say in their articles that they're socialists and they're not nationalists. Of course, Neil Mackay is a big example of that, who's always saying in every single article, "I'm not a nationalist, but I've just spent the past 10 years, 12 years voting for nationalist parties and nationalist agenda." So and at a certain point you say, well, when are you going to give up? Because, when are you going to say, well, I'm actually a socialist, therefore I'm going to vote for Labour? Now, we saw this the other day with this guy in Glasgow, some might know him, his name is Mike Daly, and he was a big national supporter for quite a long time. And this was the other day, he says, "I'm not a member of any political party, right? I want change in my city of Glasgow, and that for me means voting for Labour." Malcolm Cunning and Anna Sarwar. Malcolm Cunning was at our meetup, and he was a very great speaker there. It was really fantastic to see him. But interestingly, we predicted this back in, well, not we, but Natbuster predicted this back in May 2021. He said, when we asked who will be the first big SNP supporter to openly switch back to Labour, and Natbuster said someone from Glasgow, Mike Daly, or maybe Loki, who is Darren McGarvey. So Darren, we're waiting for you to...
any minute now. I've got my eye on my watch.
I think it's any minute now, because that's the thing. When will we see it? Now, we can't talk... I mean, it's not fair necessarily to taunt people about that, but...
Of course.
They're making decisions that we can see. If there's no chance of a second referendum, this is quite an important point. If there's no chance of a second referendum, then where do these voters go? They can't go anywhere, right? If there's no chance of getting rid of the Tories by making an independent Scotland, then what are you going to do to get rid of the Tories? Right? The only thing you've got left to do is vote for Labour or Lib Dems, but really effectively it's Labour. And once enough people come back to that, then I think it makes it starts with one or two, but it comes back to more.
Yeah,
well, I agree.
Historically, Labour needed all this, most of the seats in Scotland in order to gain power as well. So it would return to normality. It would return to normality. And I think that's the natural flow of things. It's naturally going in that direction. We just try to accelerate it a wee bit.
Absolutely.
We want Tories to be Tories and Labour to be Labour, right? And to do the best they can.
Yeah.
But this is the point, Mark. You touched on it there. People in Scotland will not continually vote for the SNP in Westminster when they see that serves no purpose. And it doesn't matter how many SNP MPs they send down there, nothing changes. And Blackford can get up and spout his only two questions every week. It'll be one question criticising Johnson, and then the next one will be, shouldn't we be independent? And he can say that until he's blue in the face, which he practically is anyway. Yeah. And then it's not going to change anything. So eventually people will think, why are we doing this? This is just crazy. And must just talk about two messages which have come in. As always, thank you for the interaction, everybody. Why all the hatred of the Tories, as asking Ian McMicken, it's irrational. We don't hate Tories at all. The fact is, Ian, they're not electable in Scotland, so we're not going to back them until such time as they are electable in Scotland. They'll certainly
each person can. I think it's fine for you to, if you like Tories, you like Tories, but it's not really about us. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things about tactical voting. I mean, one person said to me online, he said, well, okay, if you think that Labour, this is the strategy, then you shouldn't be doing any tactical voting. And I think, okay, at some point we have to stop tactical voting and saying, look, I'm voting for the party I actually want to vote for because they've got the policies that are best. And if that happens to be a Tory in your area or happens to be a Labour in your area, it doesn't matter. We're a cross-party organisation, so we're trying to understand what's going on out in the country, and we're also trying to make each party as strong as it possibly can be. And I think this strategy at this time, Golden Bridge strategy, to bring SNP back is really strong. I just want to say one final thing on it, that it's quite because of the strategy, it's more important than ever to stop people appeasing nationalism. If journalists and the media keep the idea going that there's going to be a second referendum, it just keeps the whole hope.
It keeps the hamster wheel spinning, yeah.
Keep the hamster wheel. That's it. The hamster wheel spinning. So they need to say there is no hope. And when they say, and these are people often who are actual socialists, and they're saying, "Oh, but for the good of something or other, for balance or some
democracy
idea,
or whatever,
whatever, we should have a second referendum." And all that's doing is undercutting people coming back to Labour,
but of course, what it's doing also, Mark, is perpetuating the independence industry, which we've spoken about. There is no independence movement. It's just an industry that's keeping journalists in jobs and keeping secondary MSPs in opposition and especially in government. This is the joke. Somebody's made the point here. Kay Calderwood has asked, are there not 6 Labour and SNP coalitions currently? Yes, there are. But
yes, there are.
As we said last week, the Labour councillors we've spoken to and Anna Sarwar have both confirmed that after this election, the Labour Party will not be going into coalition with any parties in order to get councils run. That's what we've been told. So yes, there are at the moment. Explicably,
and I think our job as a media and as individuals is to hold Labour to these promises and to say, look, we now understand what you're trying to do, and to do that you have to say you have to keep to what you're saying. No appeasement of nationalists in your midst. And some people are worried that a bunch of nationalists come back to Labour and infiltrate it that way. But by the time they've come back, I think they've realised it's dead anyway. So anyway, there's a lot to talk about in this issue, and my article is going to come out tomorrow. I appreciate your comments on that. Appreciate your comments on it tonight. Not all people agree, but I think the trends are moving our way. So something to think about. Next up, Niall is going to be talking about the Scot Tories and whether they've done enough to get your vote, if you're a Tory, that is, or if you're Tory curious. To do that. Right. And so let's go to that then.
Right. So this week I'm asking whether the Scot Tories have done enough to deserve your vote in these local elections. So what interests me about the Scottish Tories is that they're the only party that aren't wishy-washy on matters relating to biological sex. Right. So if you could bring up the first image for me, please, Mark. So they are fully on board with the biological sex matters, right? Which for me, it's a selling point. Yep, absolutely. And we cannot ignore that it's only the Scottish Tories that are doing this. Secondly, if there was ever a singular reason to vote for any party, I think the Scot Tories have that singular reason. You know, the policy above all others that matters the most. And to me, the policy that matters most is open the books. So that's the single greatest threat to the SNP and their reign that there is. Making the finances public would therefore expose the SNP party for what they are. And if you think the ferry scandal was just bad with just 250 million down the Swanee, opening the books would horrify people. It would be like opening Pandora's box.
Isn't that something that you were involved in with a policy for All for Unity or something?
Yes, absolutely. So the plan was to get in there, to rip open the books, and as soon as we ripped open the books, there would be no more SNP party, I can assure you. They would be gone for decades, if not forever. And it would horrify Scotland to the point where what the hell have we been allowing to govern us all this time?
Surely that will happen. Won't that happen anyway? I mean, to some extent, even if it's not an actual policy. I know it's a stated policy of the Conservatives, but surely any new administration would say, right, okay, we're going to make his life as hard as possible for the previous administration.
Well, if Labour were to adopt that policy, I'd be right behind them as well. But
right.
At the moment they're undeclared. Yes, they did take that from All for Unity, but then again, great ideas get picked up everywhere. It doesn't matter who uses the idea. A great idea is a great idea. So, and if you remember, David, we were at the Women Won't Wish demonstration outside Holyrood, and the only party that were there to stand out with us in support were the Scottish Tories. So huge credit to them where credit is due. So
indeed. And just if I could just come in there for a sec, we were indeed at that protest, and Conservative MSPs made a point. They went out of their way to mingle with the crowd, introducing themselves and stating their support for women's rights, and fair play to them. Now, I actually put in my notes, Pete Morris has just put this note as I thought he might. Pete is quite right to say that immediately following that protest, there's another protest about children's rights, which not one single MSP attended, and I know that Pete feels very strongly.
Was that the pots and pans one?
That's the one. Banging for children's rights, and as Pete has said, that's because women have votes and children don't, and that's why no MSPs bothered to hang around for that.
Very astute point.
Indeed. So I mean, fair play to Pete for pointing that out. He's quite correct. Yes.
I see as well, you got me to got this thing here as a Mackay's Law, which I think is actually very good and it should be applied anyway. Irrespective of whether you're a Tory, Labour, whatever, everyone should put this in. Basically, Derek Mackay was able to sponge off the government. I think he took over $100,000 of taxpayers' money, not dollars, pounds of taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Well, it was more in less than pounds, I suppose. But anyway, he basically ripped the taxpayer off, and nobody could do anything about it.
There was no path to getting rid of an MP. If he could have come in and bludgeoned someone to death with a blunt instrument, and there would have been no way to get rid of him as a sitting MP. It's absolutely ridiculous. But that's Holyrood for you, unfortunately. Well,
back to the Scottish Tories. Sorry, I mean, I think given their track record, they do deserve your vote. If it's in a place where they're guaranteed to beat the SNP, I mean, my whole voting strategy is anyone but the SNP and the Greens.
Absolutely right.
Anyone but. But in saying that, the Scot Tories do deserve your vote in my mind.
Right, well, here is Kenny Calderwood. He's got a good comment here, which is we need a whistleblower like Dominic Cummings. Well, not necessarily like Dominic Cummings, but we need a whistleblower in the administration. I think that would actually be something quite good. I'm surprised it hasn't happened with people splitting off to Alba and so on. You'd think that they'd be quite willing to spill secrets, but perhaps they know that if they start to spill the secrets, then the whole thing will fall apart.
Yeah.
I have to say, though, I am, the recent performance of the Scottish Tories has been fairly dismal. We put out a question yesterday, a question for Scottish Tories, or for a poll, I should say. How enthusiastic do Douglas Ross and Ruth Davidson make you feel? Love them, 15%. Meh, 56%. And kill me now, 27%. Well, I'm kind of surprised.
To be fair, I did vote meh. If you will,
right.
For full clarity, yes. I mean, they don't fill me with enthusiasm, absolutely not. But I would still got space for Douglas Ross to grow into his role. At least I think so.
Well, I don't know.
I mean,
well, I'll give you my view on this, guys. I'll give you my view. I think the Scottish Conservatives have run a lamentable campaign so far. It's been bookended by them, first off, calling for Boris Johnson to step down, then giving him their endorsement, with another follow-up endorsement. So they've gone from I love him not to I love him. It's just ludicrous. You don't do that. Whoever's advising Douglas Ross seriously needs a change of career, because he certainly isn't a political strategist. I think they've run a poor campaign, exactly as they did last year. As we know, in the last few weeks of the election campaign last year, they stopped campaigning against the SNP and started campaigning against other pro-UK parties, namely All for Unity. Absolutely appalling. Nothing but self-interest.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is I think there is an issue, and we have to, going back to what I was talking in the previous segment, we have to stop using the referendum as a bogeyman and say they have this thing, vote for us to stop a second referendum. They've not done that as much in their materials this time, I must admit.
It's not been as bad, no, not quite as bad.
So, but that was the thing. You always come out with this, and it should actually be, if you vote for the SNP, there's not going to be a referendum anyway. So vote for a party.
Exactly.
That's that's actually going to deal with something with local services. Now, and this is a local election, dealing for your local councillor. You might like whoever Ewan Blockley, for example, was on. He's a young guy. He's really passionate about his local area. Yeah, he might be the guy. He might be the guy for you, even if he is a Tory. I mean, really, it's local government, or it might be a Labour person or a Lib Dem or Independent. But certainly don't vote for SNP or Greens, because they will use that for independence.
Absolutely, they call it a tacit approval of independence. Exactly. A question here from Kenny Calderwood: what happened to the SNP accountants who resigned? Very simply, Kenny, they signed non-disclosure agreements, and so they're not allowed to say anything. That's what happened to them, unfortunately. Picked up very nice payoffs, but they're not. You don't expect to see them saying anything in a hurry, sadly. But such is Scotland under the open, transparent SNP government. What a joke that is!
The fact that they call themselves open, transparent, most open, transparent government ever is the most laughable thing ever.
While blocking freedom of information requests and redacting 90% of every document they release, what an absolute joke!
Chris Story says, "I was impressed by the Conservative Party political last night, appalling to young people." I'm not too sure.
But I didn't. I didn't manage to catch it. If someone could post it on Twitter or something like
that would be very good.
Well, that's the thing. Where is it? I mean, we have terrible messaging. I remember, I think I said this in the podcast before, a few years ago, I think in the previous Scottish election, I actually wrote to Murdo Fraser and said, look, where are the billboards? Where are the messages in my local area? There's only 300 votes between Labour or SNP and Labour, and all three of them are only 300 votes apart. So it's like, but nothing, where's the targeting? No, not a message, nothing on Twitter, nothing on Facebook, nothing at all. And he said he passed it on, but we didn't do anything in the end. And then now here we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Same place.
So,
moving on.
Well, if you want to vote for the Tories, let us know in the party why you do that. If you want to vote for Labour or whatever it is, also let us know why you do that. We will move on to our next segment, which is going to be, seems to be missing.
It's back up. Yes, it's back up. It's back up to me and the nurses and the NHS.
Okay, that's right. So, we'll be back in a second. All right, David, you're up.
Okay. So this week, by now infamous Scottish Nationalist Party MSP inadvertently revealed the party's plans to fund Scotland's NHS by reducing staff numbers. That's right, Shettleston MSP and well-known bugle gob John Mason has once again opened his big mouth and put his size 11 foot straight into it. Mason was contacted this week by a representative, or I think it was this week anyway, a representative of NHS Workers United for Scotland. And this group were seeking Mason's support in awarding NHS staff a pay rise in line with inflation. Perfectly legitimate and understandable request. Exactly, very reasonable. And in reply, Mason, whether willfully or accidentally, managed to reveal the very limited range of options available to the SNP for funding the NHS pay rises or not. And he actually asked the NHS workers representative where she thought the money should come from to fund these pay rises. I mean, it's quite unbelievable.
That's
that
bizarre,
a politician would ask a unionist, a union member that. But in a moment of sheer inspiration, Mason actually came up with this brilliant suggestion. And I'm quoting him here. One option would be for the NHS to give better pay increases, but cut down on the number of staff. In that way, they could stay within their budget. Brilliant.
Wow.
So, you guys,
that's unbelievable. It's it's like saying, if we sack your colleague, we can pay you more.
Yes.
That's as base as it gets. What a lunatic this John Mason is. What a lunatic. And we're slashing nurses when the NHS is crumbling away. That seems like a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
Come on, John.
Well, I mean, anyone in Scotland who can read or hear knows that Scotland's NHS frontline staffing numbers are wholly inadequate, woefully inadequate. A lot of that might be to do with the fact that staffing elsewhere in the NHS is out of control, which I would agree, non-NHS staff, non-actually medical staff. But nonetheless, the idea that an MSP, a member of the Scottish Parliament, could even think, far less state, that the solution could be to sack more people in order to give pay rises to those who are left is frankly unbelievable. But there's more, guys. It's quite incredible.
Really?
There's more. There's more, exactly. He went on to state that, of course, that would probably mean longer waiting times for accident and emergency in other departments. Well, then maybe we could cut back local government services to give more to the NHS. Mason apparently said this, guys, okay, to a union representative of all people. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And as if that wasn't enough, there's a final thing he said, which was he asked the nursing representative, the union representative, if she would prefer an income tax rise or the introduction of a tax based on the value of people's properties. Now, this was a Scottish National Party MSP this week talking to a union representative. I mean, honestly,
he doesn't know what he's talking about at all.
Exactly. I always wonder, Mark, what do you think? What do the SNP whips make of this guy? Do you think they think, oh Christ, not again, John, please? Or do they think the guy's just out of control?
I mean, it just seems like why are you going out and talking to people if you don't know what you're talking about? I mean, right. It's like I can't even imagine what it would be like. You're supposed to know your brief for a start. You're supposed to try and say some political stuff that actually makes sense. You go like, all right, well, we need to raise more money. Get more money from Westminster. Oh, there we go.
Classic.
That's what we need to do. Exactly. Isn't that the normal SNP line? Yeah. Well, Westminster isn't giving us enough money. So we have to get more nurses, we have to get independent. There we go. How difficult was that?
I mean, it's not a difficult answer for that. It's in fact, your answer's already there if you're on that. Exactly. It's Boris or it's Westminster. So the fact that he just says, well, in fact, we can sack your colleague and we can give her pay to you and that'll solve it. What do you think? What?
Brilliant.
Did this actually happen? Did this conversation happen? That's unbelievable, John.
Apparently it did. Apparently. So what it shows, three things. Firstly, it shows that Mason is quite literally incapable of keeping his idiot mouth shut, which is we all know. Secondly, it lays bare the indisputable fact that the SNP plans to further, the SNP does plan further to raise Scotland's tax burden, be it through income tax hikes or be it through a tax on property value.
Well, it just makes me think that they'll do both.
Absolutely. This is exactly.
Raise the taxes and they'll get rid of the nurses because that's what they do. And the money would disappear somewhere, and you're like, where's all this money coming from? And they'll raise the taxes. They'll cut the nurses, and they'll get the money from Westminster.
Absolutely right. So which proves one thing.
What's going to happen?
Yeah, but all that proves, of course, is the SNP, the champions of the battle against hated Tory austerity, have got no policies other than austerity and stilts, because that's what that is. Public service cuts and tax increases. That's austerity, guys. That's what it is. That's what John Mason is admitting are the only options open to them. Thanks for that, John. You've been very helpful. So well knew this was the case.
Kiyoshi Kawaishi says, if anything, politics in Scotland is exciting. So I don't know if it's exciting. It's more frustrating than
exhausting.
I think.
In one way, go on, sorry, Mark.
No, sorry. And Kenny Calderwood saying we should send Mason to Westminster for a laugh. Well, I mean, it's a tragedy, really, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, yes, it's like sick.
I mean, we get Blackford standing up there every so often. Oh, he's like, well, independence, and everyone groans when he stands up.
I know.
The floorboards groan, and he groans,
sure,
and everyone's groaning. The whole country groans.
And to think that
he stands up because they just know it's just content-free nonsense.
Yep.
Blackford must be, one of the most competent of the SNP bunch to have made it where he is. So the fact that he's there, it just shows you that the rest of them must be absolutely dreadful. Absolutely dreadful.
I mean, used to say that you could put a red rosette on a monkey and it would get elected in Scotland. And now it's definitely the case if you put
a cardboard cutout of an SNP member
on a bunch of monkeys. That's where you get the SNP. It's a shocking situation, David. I think, as some of our people have said in the comments there, said we need to find out a little bit more about this, but we need to get this guy. What we really need to do is get the guy in video saying stuff like that.
Yeah, quite.
But I do think the media has to come up and say, ask more questions. We saw that Sturgeon was on there the other day complaining about Boris and stuff. We need the media to say, look, we really just want the bins emptied. You can rattle on about Boris for 2 seconds, but when's the bins getting emptied? Oh, why are you still going on about independence? There's no chance of second referendum, stuff like that. And we need that turn in the media where they're actually getting pushed. And we hopefully we'll see that happening over the next few months. There was a hope perhaps we could get that in the ferry scandal, but the ferry scandal, of course, has been overshadowed lately. Hopefully another scandal. Well, it's the SNP.
Well, no, hopefully that would definitely come along.
Another one in a few minutes, unlike the ferries.
So there was a wee bit of media pushback. If you remember last week, she was in a food bank in Govan Hill, I think it was. Yep. Was it a food bank or a grocery place? And I think it was LBC that was doing the interview, but they did comment on, well, look outside. The streets are manky.
Yep.
Just outside. What are you going to do about this? Oh, well, blah, 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 blah. Nothing,
blah,
basically.
Blah, blah, so long, right? Well, she's managed a whole career out of blah, blah, blahing.
With head
blah,
nodding.
blah, blah, Westminster.
Yep.
It's worked for quite a long time.
Yes, John Mason just to say, John Mason did, in fact, famously say that a woman doesn't always say yes the first time. This was his way of saying that people who didn't at first vote for independence may do so subsequently. And he chose the very tasteful analogy of a woman who refuses or doesn't want to have sex with a man. I mean, seriously, what is in this guy's head other than sawdust? I mean, really?
Sawdust.
I mean, this is the thing. There's a really bunch of nutters coming up. Actually, what we'll do, just a little reminder that we do have a crowdfunder going on for billboards. You can go to our site and have put in some cash so that we can get them up. The SNP councils are rubbish. They're going to go up all over the country with your help. So please donate. At the moment we're at, let me refresh this page and see what we've got. For it, we're £1,853 out of our target of 3,000. So if you can help us get over 2,000, that would be really great. Coming up, it's the highlight of the week.
Yes, indeed it is.
It's the highlight of our week, and hopefully the highlight of your week. It is the Zoomer
of the week.
David, we're back to you again.
Oh, my goodness me already. Right, hang on. Let me just get my nomination. Right, okay, my nomination this week is the one, the only, Angus McNeil. Angus McNeil, he has spoken out in defence of a much picked upon Scottish minority group, lambs. And I'm not joking here, unfortunately, this is true. Angus has called for a humane reduction in the number of Scotland's sea eagle population after a farmer on Barra lost 2 lambs, supposedly after being attacked by sea eagles, which are, of course, the largest, in terms of size, birds of prey in the United Kingdom. Magnificent creatures. One truly joy-bringing creatures. Obviously not so much fun for the lambs, but I digress. Angus, of course, whose pronouncements are almost as unintentionally hilarious as John Mason's, helpfully pointed out that, and he said this, sea eagles do not have a conservation policy. Thank you for that, Angus. That was very helpful.
So what's he saying there? We can shoot them with reckless abandon?
Apparently, we can just start killing sea eagles because in case his neighbouring farmers lose some lambs. Now, I'm just hoping nobody tells Angus that Scotland also has a large population of utterly ruthless killers who not only kill but mercilessly torment first helpless animals such as small birds and mice. And Scotland is full of these awful creatures. So I'm just hoping that Angus doesn't discover this horrific fact, or else he will almost certainly call for a humane reduction in the number of Scotland's domestic cats, who, just like Scotland's sea eagles, do not follow a conservation policy. So unbelievable. I always try and inject humour, but these guys just make it impossible not to laugh at them. My nomination for Zoomer of the Week, indeed.
Well, I mean, what is this thing? These are beautiful birds of prey that are being in danger of being killed by ridiculous wind turbines in their migration paths and around them. We've all seen the videos that they try and hide about them, the birds flying into them. And, he wants to go out and, to shoot them. Like, what is he, like Elmer Fudd or something like that?
Exactly. I'll get that one.
I saw an eagle, type of thing. It's like, what is this going on about?
Oh, it's so ridiculous.
I mean, okay, lambs aren't cute. I mean, we can all agree lambs are pretty cute and sometimes quite tasty. But we there's how many lambs are there? There's probably millions of lambs in Scotland.
Absolutely.
And how many eagles are sea eagles are? Not many, I don't think.
Probably a few dozen at most, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's just typical reactionary nonsense, just utter worthless pronouncement, as always, from this perennially absurd buffoon Angus McNeil. So he is my very, very staunch nomination for Zoomer of the Week.
It's such a bizarre story. You'd never
Every story is bizarre.
I know. No wonder is it Kyoshi has said Scottish politics is exciting? It's just bizarre week to week. It's just what's going on? What is going on? We need a humane reduction in eagles now.
I know. Oh, that's nonsense. Yeah, I mean, Scotland's exciting. Scotland's politics is exciting in the same way as Lenny famously said, Chicago politics is so corrupt it's thrilling. So it's the same sort of thing. What a great quote.
I don't know if it gets to that level, but anyway. Okay, moving on. Right, okay, where are we at? Oh, it's me. All right. So, all right, what have we got? Oh, there's a rare moment of party unity in the Scottish Tories when Douglas Ross actually stood up for his boss. Quite something, really. I think David mentioned this earlier. All that bother, he, called for the resignation, made him appear disloyal, and highlighted his own ineffectiveness. And then he looked like an idiot when he had to retract it, and now he looks like an idiot again because the thing he was annoyed about actually happened, and he has to support Boris. Oh my God, why didn't he just shut up before, not say anything, which anyone would have advised him for. Of course, it all comes from Brexit. And talking of that, so my Zoomer of the Week actually isn't Douglas, but is because Douglas, actually, as I said, supported the boss at last, but is actually Baroness Ruth Davidson, can't even speak.
Baroness Ruth Davidson of London Links, if you please.
Of London. Oh, yes, which is very nice over there, I have to say.
Yep.
And she's on there. She's just so butthurt about Brexit. She, is really sticking the knife into Boris at every opportunity.
Yep.
And against Boris and against Douglas Ross. Oh, actually, I had a little bit in here. This is Tom Gallagher here. Who's a friend of the show, a friend of the majority, said, "You're a tiresome career politician whose tendency to deliver moral sermons while feathering her own nest grates on many who once hoped you were serious about running Nicola Sturgeon out of town. Folk who see that, like her, you're largely out for yourself. Oh,
Quite right, Tom.
harsh words, and quite right. You know, this is the thing. I always said this before. You know, what's her name? Ruth. A lot of people still respect Ruth, but when she basically, you know, she's a lot of the cause of why we are where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
If she had stood up and fought for Brexit instead of being on the same side as Nicola Sturgeon, she understood that Brexit meant a hard border with the EU and that would kill Scottish nationalism. And also she understood that not standing up on the same platform as Nicola Sturgeon was a good idea. Then, you know, perhaps we wouldn't be in a situation where the nationalists can basically say, oh, Scotland didn't vote to go out of the EU every 5 minutes. You know, she caused that. And, you know, without basically all three party leaders were for staying in the EU. And this is where we're at now. We have this, and she ran off to the Lords, and she thinks she's got the, you know, the platform now to spend the next 40 years complaining at people who are actually more effective in fighting nationalism than she is. So, you know, I've had enough of her, and I won't take any, you know, people saying that she's any good. You know, she had a lucky break. She did increase the Conservative support at that time because I think people were really, really sick of Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah.
And we needed some way to expose it, to show it. And now Douglas Ross hasn't been able to, you know, capitalise, and that's a different matter. But I think, you know, 40 years of her, you know, sniping about Brexit is just a bit too much to bear for anyone.
Absolutely right. A horrific prospect. Yeah, she's been pushed. She's just, at the moment, she's just asking, she wants everybody to lose their job. She wants the Chancellor to go, the Prime Minister to go. Does she want Nicola Sturgeon to go? Well, she didn't try too hard to replace her last year, so you have to wonder. But going to the Lords, I can totally understand the private pressures on Ruth Davidson. I'm not at all without sympathy. I know something of the abuse she got in public when she was spotted, and I know that happened. I get that, but why you go to the Lords? Why not just move to London? Why not just become an MP? The Lords, really? I mean, it just seems.
Well, the thing I don't quite understand is, didn't Boris doesn't he approve her for that position? Right? It must be
absolutely did.
The Prime Minister's privilege, and then she just turns around and backstabbing the guy all the time. It's like
some loyalty. And the thing is, I mean, their whole career's been like this, though. As soon as Johnson won the Conservative Party nomination to be leader, she flounced out. She said, right, that's it, I'm off. And then Jackson Carlow took over, and she stood in as temporary again, only when Jackson Carlow stood down. So she's got form for stabbing Boris in the back. So she's gone from stabbing in the back to taking his endorsement to going to the House of Lords to stabbing in the back again. And it's all, as you say,
I think she'd like to stab.
Is this a holdover because of the EU situation?
Yeah, big time, because she's still so angry about Brexit, as are most of the Scottish Conservatives, in truth. So
when are people
still haven't got the point? We were
this?
talking about this today at lunch. We were saying, okay, when Douglas Ross, we think that there's going to be, Conservatives aren't going to do very well in this election, and is Douglas Ross going to, you know, give up? I mean, he should. I mean, I can't. Can he go on the, you know, out to doorsteps and say, oh, I support him? No, I don't support him. You know, what do you think about Boris? You know, it's like backwards and forwards. You do the hokey cokey. You know.
Yep.
So,
exactly.
But then again, it's a local election for local issues. Boris shouldn't be brought into this.
Absolutely right. True. It's nothing to do with them. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that is true. But the same token, what I'm saying is that, you know, once he goes, can we actually get someone from the Scottish Conservatives who actually understands that, you know, that Brexit kills nationalism, and
absolutely,
you know, even if they didn't agree with Brexit at the time, they must understand that a hard border with the EU is a non-starter, right, for any voter. I mean, except for the hardcore. So it's time to say, even for that reason alone, that Brexit is something that the party should embrace. They've been far too long being butthurt about it. And, you know,
two things I've got to comment on here. Two comments. Ruth was easily the best Scottish Tory politician for the last 50 years. Drop your Brexit fixation. I think you're projecting there, Dave Daniel. We're not remotely fixated with Brexit. Brexit's happened. I think the people who are fixated in Brexit are Remainers, with great respect. Secondly, Colin Fife, most Scot Conservatives Brexit, most Scot Conservative MSPs, I would say, most certainly are angry about Brexit. Yes, I would maintain that. I agree that most Scots voters are not, but the MSPs, I would say, very much are.
Well, certainly our followers understand that Brexit kills nationalism, and I think that there's a definite disconnect between the Scottish Tory Party and its voters in
Absolutely.
that. Moving on, it's going to be Niall next.
Yes. Okay, so my Zoomer of the week for the second week running is Humza Yousaf. And sorry, guys, for picking too many people in succession, but this clip really needs to be seen by as many people as possible, right? So if you'd be so kind to bring up the clip,
Right,
Mark, it's
here it
absolutely sensational.
The Secretary was challenged by one patient on the government's track record.
Years and years of grating, grinding pain. And I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to spoil it by crying, but I feel as if I should weep for me and all the others that have been let down again and again and again. The whole thing needs unravelling and reknitting.
The Health Secretary
Right.
Secretary was
sorry. Okay.
It's okay. So for me, this woman speaks for Scotland and the NHS in general.
Yeah.
So although we love to laugh and point fingers at Humza, and it's great to see him getting absolutely scolded by a wee old woman, you can't even feel happy about this. You know,
True.
you can't. It's so sad, and you can hear it in the woman's voice that she's at her wit's end, and she's speaking for other people. There's obviously, I mean, she would have been in that hospital and saying, look, there's going to be politicians coming about the day, and she would have been told, you're going to speak to him. And she's probably gone over it in mind how people have been telling her what to say and all that stuff. But I think you can absolutely hear it in her voice. She's in incredible pain. She's been let down horrendously. And she is speaking for other people in the NHS that woman had waited 3 years for a hip replacement. Think about that. 3 years.
Imagine the pain all that time.
It's outrageous.
Yep.
Well, I think we all feel as though we're kind of prisoner of it, right? I mean,
yes.
I lived in America for a while. You can just walk in, and get seen. You have to have health insurance, right? But you don't pay all the tax, so it doesn't actually cost people that much more. And you can get seen instantly. I say to people, who I knew, you say, I need my hip replaced. And they're like, okay, well, how long do you have to wait for that? Oh, like 2 weeks, that type of thing. And but if you're in pain, it's really not good. There has to be a better solution. And certainly the solution isn't putting Humza Yousaf in charge of the Scottish NHS. I think we can all agree that. You need people who actually are able to do the work. People who, at the very minimum, high-level organisers, high-level people who are not political appointees, high-level people who've worked in either multinational companies or worked at high level in a health service. Yep. These are the people you need. People who actually know what's going on, not people who are trying to make political decisions and for a headline.
Would you be so kind to play the clip again? I'm just going to point out something to the viewers, our eagle-eyed viewer. So the history woman pointed out someone on Twitter, right?
Challenged by one patient on the
watch Humza closely.
Years and years of grating, grinding pain. I'm not going to cry.
Looks away, glances away, recoils in.
For me and all the others that have been let down.
He just recoils. I don't know what he's recoiling in, but history woman sort of suggested that he's looking to see if he's on camera.
The Health Secretary. Secretary was challenged.
Disgraceful.
It's disgraceful. His body language speaks volumes. He does not want to help. He comes back. He glances away. Because he wants to see, oh, dear God, they better not be getting this footage. Dear God.
Yep.
Right. Okay, moving on. It's a bit of a shocker. I think it's time for, is it Niall, David? Which one do you want to choose?
Actually, I thought the Eagle one was rather crazy, actually. I hadn't even actually seen that story, David, so he surprised me tonight. So I think I'm going to go for it. Is it Angus McNeil?
Angus McNeil. Angus Brendan McNeil, as he tells himself. Fantastic interaction tonight. Some really, really good points. Ruth is becoming like the big next big huffer like Ted Heath. What a great comment, the Scottish Ted Heath. Can we talk about our ideas as the best policies for Scotland's future? Definitely, but in future shows, because we've just run out of time. Pete Morris again saying didn't even have gluten-free meals for his mum in hospital. Absolutely disgraceful. Kiyoshi,
that's shocking.
I've had life excellent service from this, and I kid you not, I mean, the guys here know I've had some very, very serious health issues. I cannot speak highly enough of the quality of service I've got from the NHS. They are appallingly mismanaged, though. They're run by accountants who can't count. That's the problem. And politicians who are just clueless and looking for headlines. That's the problem, NHS.
Well, it's part of the problem of putting people's health under political control in the first place.
Absolutely. Right.
But that's a topic for another day. So I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. We have, I'm going to just say hello to Mary for doing the comments. And how's that been today?
Hey, Mary.
Yes,
Hi,
a lot of comments as usual. Let's just please keep them coming in, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone.
All right, and again, thank you to donors and for everyone who's watching. We're running a little bit late tonight, but I hope it's fine. Hope it's been interesting enough to keep you on the hook. If you like our show, please tell your friends. At 7 o'clock every Thursday, we have this show. It's the only anti-national show in Scotland, or the biggest, I should say, national anti-national show in Scotland. And we are the only people who talk about these issues in depth. And we like to hear your comments, and we think about them after the show. Thanks, Peter, there, and for everyone else who's made their comments.
Yep. Thanks everyone for having us. Thanks for tuning in. You know where to find us next week, and please do share after the fact. We keep this rolling. Keep this rolling week to week to week until we make the elections, and then we'll have a big election podcast. That'll be great, won't it, Mark?
Be good.
Yes, we talked about that today, so looking forward to that immensely. And don't forget, get out there and vote for your unionist candidate. Don't give any votes to any pro-nationalist, pro-independence candidates, please, guys.
That's a very good. A big thank you to donors. You can donate to our billboard campaign. It's up and running. Just go to our website and click button. A big thanks to our distribution partners, UK Union Voice and United Against Separation. And I will leave you with the thought of the week, which is very simply, build your enemy a golden bridge to retreat. So, see you next week, same time. Thanks for coming by.
Good night, guys. All the
Thank
best.
you. Good night. Bye.